Hello, my name is Beth Dixon, and this is a video series based on Vicki Borlaug's PowerPoint presentation on binomial distribution. I wish to thank Mrs. Borlaug for allowing me to use her PowerPoint to make this set of videos on this PowerPoint. In this PowerPoint, we cover the concept of binomials and practice some examples on binomial distribution. And we're ready to move to example number 2. The probability that a newspaper subscriber will read an advertisement in the Sunday paper is 0.42. 7 newspaper subscribers are randomly selected, and we're asked to find the probability of 2 subscribers reading the advertisement, finding the probability of at most 2 subscribers reading the advertisement, and finding the probability of at least 2 subscribers reading the advertisement. First of all, we always want to make sure that we're doing a binomial before we use the binomial formula. So it must meet the 4 characteristics. First of all, is there a fixed number of trials? Each subscriber would be a trial. So 7 newspaper subscribers are randomly selected, and we're always looking at the groups of the 7 subscribers. Yes, we have a fixed number of trials. Trials are independent. Each subscriber's probability of reading the advertisement is not influenced by the other subscriber. So yes, the trials are independent. Each trial has 2 outcomes, a success or a failure. Success would be to read the advertisement, and the failure would be does not read the advertisement. So yes, we have 2 outcomes. And lastly, the probabilities remain constant for each trial, and each subscriber has the same 0.42 probability of reading the advertisement. So yes, we have a constant probability. So we have a binomial experiment. At that point, we want to fill in our variables, the number of successes. We want to define our successes as read advertisements. The number of trials would be 7. The probability of success would be 0.42. The probability of failure, remember, is 1 minus 0.42, or Q is always equal to 1 minus P, since they are complements. Some of your text will use 1 minus P, and some of your teachers will use 1 minus P instead of Q. It is the same thing. So we have 0.58 as our probability of failure, and the number of successes would range from 0 through 7. A. Find the probability of 2 subscribers reading the advertisement. Notice that Ms. Borlaug has highlighted that 2 subscribers. That means we're looking for just the 2. Our formula is given here. Where did we get the formula? Remember that the first part of the formula is the count. It's the number of ways we could have 2 subscribers. How many ways could we have 2 successes arranged out of the 7 that we picked? That would be 7, choose 2, and that's the way I read the 7 combinations of 2 things. And then how many successes do we have? How many probabilities of success do we have? We have 2, so that would be 2 probabilities of 0.42. And 5 probabilities of 0.58. And the reason there are 5 is because if there are 7 total, if 2 are successes, 7 minus 2 gives us 5 failures. So we have the count, the probability of reads or the probability of successes, we want 2 of those, and the probability of not reading, and the 5 of those as our failures. We'll place that in our calculator, and that gives us 0.2431. The B part says find the probability that at most 2 subscribers reading the advertisement. Remember what at most means. If you've not watched the video and are still struggling with the phrases at most and at least, I do have a video explaining the difference in those two terms. But at most 2 subscribers would be 2 or less. So we're looking for 0, 1, and 2 as being our answers. That is 3 numbers, and we can calculate those 3 probabilities and add those together. For the first one, since x is 0, that would be 7 choose 0, the count, times the probability of reading raised to the 0, since we want none of the subscribers to have read the advertisement, the number of our successes to be 0, which gives us 7 failures, so the 0.58 will be raised to the 7th. So that would be, then our next one would be 7 choose 1 when x equals 1 times 0.42, the probability of our success, raised to how many successes do we want? We want 1 success for x equals 1, and 0.58 raised to, this would be our failures, and if we have 1 success, that leaves 7 minus 1, or 6 failures. And for the 2, we figured that out in the previous problem, and it's the same as what we just figured. So that still gives us our count, our probability of reading it, and our probability of not reading it. And we place those in the calculator. We get 0.0221 for x equals 0, and 0.1119 for x equals 1, and 0.2431 for x equals 2. Since we're looking for all of those for x equals 0 or x equals 1 or x equals 2, or tells us to add, we'll sum up those 3 probabilities and get 0.3771. And our answer is 0.3771. Lastly, we have part C, which is to find the probability of at least 2 subscribers reading the advertisement. So at least 2 would be 2 or more. And since that is a longer section circled than what is not circled, we will find the 2 parts that are not circled. It is easier to find the probability of the complement because the complement is the shorter list. Now, those were the 2 probabilities that we just found in part B. So the formulas are the same. The count, the probabilities of reading, and the probabilities of not reading, and the 2 decimals are actually the same. What we then want to do is just add up the probability that x equals 0 and that x equals 1. That gives us a total of 0.034, and this is the complement of what we're trying to find. then what we're trying to find will be 1 minus 0.134 because the total of all the probabilities add to 1. So what we need for our answer is 0.8660. Miss Borlaug rounds her decimals to 4 places. Be sure that you follow your teacher's rounding rules. Let's look quickly on how to check your answers on the TI-84 calculator using the distribution command. The probability of 2 reading the advertisement, we got an answer of 0.2431. The command using the binomial PDF, and PDF stands for binomial probability distribution function. 7 is your N, 0.42 is your P, and X is your 2. It's always in the form of N, P, X. And remember that that puts them in alphabetical order. And our N was 7. Our probability of success was 0.42, and we're looking for X equals 2. And that will also give us the 0.2431. The probability of at most 2 reading the advertisement, remember what we were looking for and what we got for our answer. We can use the binomial cumulative distribution function, which counts and adds up the probabilities. A shortcut to remember how this function works is to remember not what CDF really stands for, but an acronym, because CDF means that this function will count down from the number that you place in your X. It means it counts down the probabilities from what you put in there and counts down from that number down to 0. So if you place in the CDF 7 for your N, 0.42 for your X, for your probability, and then 2 for your X, it will count down from 2, then 1, then 0. It counts down from 2 down the number scale. I guess that's up your table, but it's down your number scale, and adds up these probabilities and gives you the 0.3771. On to C, the probability of at least 2 reading the advertisement. Remember that we want to do this with the complement. Since the 2 goes up the number scale, the cumulative density formula function won't work since it counts down from. And we don't want to count down from 7 because it goes all the way to 0. But if we use the complement, we can count down not from 2 but from 1 and use the complement. So we will do 1 minus the binomial CDF, then parentheses 7 for N, 0.42 for our P, and then 1 because we're subtracting the part that's not included, and that's the 1 and the 0, and it counts down 1 and 0 in the CDF. That still gives us the answer of 0.86599, which rounds to match the answer that we got. Here are some exercises for you to try. And this concludes this set of videos. If you are a Walter State student and need additional help, please stop by and see me in the math lab in MBSS 222. Thank you.